situation, which for me means you get to have input and dialogue and all of that with both me and each other. And there's a good reason for that I'll explain as I sort of present to you some of the ideas that I want to talk about. I hope it'll make sense, and if it doesn't, you'll ask, and it is being recorded, so I hope I hope that doesn't make you shy, because I think that it's really important to talk about this. It's something that doesn't get talked about often, and sometimes hard to talk about. So I think it will be of great benefit to people that we do, and that we, yeah, so I'm very appreciative of all of you being here, because I don't think I could talk to nobody. Not that the people online are nobody, but if nobody was in the room, it would be very difficult for me. And I'm also very appreciative that you're willing to be here and have this conversation, because yeah, it nourishes me as well as other people to do it. So thank you. So I called this conversation Getting to the Essence, and so I want to talk about that a little bit in my work. Essence is kind of the focus. It has been, but I'm finally admitting it, that it's the most important thing I want to talk about. As a person, I like to get to the heart of the matter, and I don't spend a lot of time on the surface. We'll talk about that too, but I want to say that essence isn't a direct correlate to DNA, but it has very much, there's overlap. So we can't make a direct sort of line between the notion of DNA and essence. But essence, in the Chinese medical point of view, is the substance in the body that holds your blueprint, holds your, I like to say, the download that you got when you came into this life. And the other thing that we say is that this body that you have has everything you need in order to evolve in this lifetime to where you want to be. And so to me, it's very exciting that when you begin to work at the level of the essence, you begin to engage evolution directly, meaning, you know how it takes thousands and thousands of years for some aspects of humans to evolve, to change, but actually we have the capacity to create that change in ourselves in this lifetime. And when we do that, we actually engage change both forward and back in time. Now, I know that sounds weird too, but time is not actually linear. It's a linear thinking is a way we use because it helps us talk about things. But in fact, in some ways of looking at our world, all the time that came before and all the time that's coming afterward is accessible in this moment. And so I'm going to suggest that it is accessible in this moment through your presence in your life, and that health is never the absence of disease, but always dependent on your presence in your own body, in your own life. So my goal in sharing this perspective is to offer ways that you can actually connect with yourself so that you have the choices, you could say, that you want in this life. Because that's the other thing that I emphasize when I work with people, is that knowing your choices and choosing them is what gives you power. It doesn't matter what you choose, in my estimation. And we'll probably get to talking about this in various ways. I am not here to tell you that one therapy is better than another. I'm not here to tell you you should do or should not do chemo, radiation, acupuncture, homeopathy. That is not what I'm here to talk about. I want to talk about how you get connected with yourself in such a way that whatever you choose becomes powerful for you. So I have a strong conviction on this matter, that any form of therapy that you choose will be powerful for you. But if you don't know what you're choosing, then of course, then it's questionable. So the other piece that we're going to talk about is a way to look at the different therapies that you might choose in a way that might help you to understand what you want. And again, I want you to know what you want because it's not what I want that matters, because it's your life, right? And I'd say that about any doctor or any support person. It is never about what someone else wants. Can't be. It has to be about what you choose and what you want for yourself, because your individual evolution and your individual manifestation is what matters, right? That's why you have this body, and that's why this body can talk to you, so that you have the means by which you can evolve. So that's my basic premise. There's lots more to the way I think about the body, and we'll definitely get there. And welcome to the people who came in after I started talking. I hate that, but there's bunches of people online, and I felt like I had to start, so I did.
And I should say we have a recording for those people who came in late. So
yeah, and we are making a recording, and it will be available. Yeah, so now might be the time to say that the person who inspired me to actually do this is someone who I had hoped would be here today, and she wasn't able to be here today. And she did write a little note. Robert will maybe read for us about her situation. Her name's Catherine.
Hello, everyone. I wanted so much to be part of the conversation today, but instead I must attend to the needs of my body and my heart.
Could you speak up?
Yes.
Please?
My husband has had a rough couple of weeks with his health, and on Friday a friend died from metastatic breast cancer. Today I feel the pull of wanting to be there with all of you, but when I touch in more deeply, I know I need to nourish myself with walking, sun, and outdoor air, and a visit with my animals and the good friends who look after them for me. There is a little lingering voice in my head that says this choice is selfish, but that is a voice of shoulds and expectations. Self-care is a courageous choice. What a radical proposition that I may do what feels right for me today and every day. The discipline is to feel in to the question every day, every hour even, of what my body and heart needs now. The challenge is to feel in and be with whatever I find. Last fall, Josephine and I engaged in an extended health retreat together over nearly 2 months, including 3 weeks in person for good portions of each day. While we've worked together for years, the intensive nature of the retreat and the commitment I made by taking that time for myself has deepened my path. The material generated, the insights gathered, and the ongoing consultations with Josephine have helped me stay focused in my health practices. I have encouraged her to use the term personal medicine because that is what it feels like to me. Our work is fully grounded in how and what my life is now, unfolding the potential for healing in each day. Josephine has been an ally and teacher since the very beginning of my journey with cancer in 2000. Her doctoring, herb, diet, acupuncture, and other prescriptions has been enormously helpful. But there is something else that arises from our therapeutic relationship that is even more important to me. I hesitate here, searching for the words. Perhaps it is best to describe how I am. I feel confident to negotiate whatever arises. I feel happy in my life, even with the uncertainty, even with the illness so much a part of my life. I feel present in the experience of the full range of my emotions. I feel calm because I am supported by an informed and expansive view of my situation. I feel encouraged and trusted to make choices that feel right for me. Best to all of you. Love, Catherine.
So in a way, I think it's perfect what she's saying. And because what I've taught her is right there. How to go back to what I think really matters here, which is your own knowing, more than anything else. And the other piece that occurred to me when we realized that she wasn't able to be here today is that the personal medicine piece is very personal, how each person chooses to create the space in their life and in their world for the work they need to do. And it's different for everybody. I often ask clients at the beginning of working with them, what is it you need to do before you die? And I don't really care what their problem is. I ask them that anyway. What is it you need to do before you die? Because I want to support people in making the choices that will enable them to be ready whenever that happens. Because from a Buddhist point of view, we say death comes without warning. And it's not a popular topic, talking about death. But it has been my practice for many years, not only as my personal practice, but as a practice that I share with people, that the separation we make when we fear death doesn't allow us to live our lives. So by embracing that question, we actually have potential for living even more. Yes?
I'm sorry, but I would really like you to introduce yourself.
Oh, okay.
And tell us, you say you are helping people. What do you do? Am I naive or what?
No, it's fine. It's fine.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. It's interesting because most of the people who have joined are people who do know me, but there are probably a good number who don't. So I thank you for asking. Yeah. Yeah. Well, let's see. What do I want to say? I've been practicing Chinese medicine since 1994. Chinese medicine has been the medicine structure, you could say. And I've been practicing in the Buddhist tradition since 1984, so for a long time. And in the last year, I've had sort of a really big pull to bring those two things together and to start to create situations where meditation practice becomes a fundamental part of healthcare. And the thing that inspired me in that regard is also a Buddhist contemplation, which is, the first noble truth that the Buddha taught. There's suffering, and the reason we suffer is because there's change, right? Change is a fundamental issue for most of us. Things change, we don't like it. Things change, we do like it, and they still change, right? So for me, at some point, I became aware that, wow, in the Neijing, in the classic of Chinese medicine, they say that wind is the cause of 100,000 diseases. Wind is synonymous with change. Wind is a way of saying change. So I like to say anytime that we become ill, there's an invitation to change, right? So the invitation to change is there, and you know how it is when somebody makes an invitation, right? What goes through your head when they invite you to dinner, right? Do I have time? Do I want to? What will I wear? How will I get there? Is it a time of day? I want to go out. There's a whole range. And the thing that's that strikes me and that I go back to frequently is that the body, which is always present, doesn't have the opportunity to go anywhere like your mind. You can't really argue with it, you know, like it kind of sets the limit for you in this lifetime. You know, if you're gonna go out, your body better be there for you. If your body's not there for you, you don't get to go out. So the dialogue there, and this brings me to something I referred to earlier, I say, by virtue of having learned this from one of my teachers, chi is a relationship. Chi, the word that we often use for energy, I think it's much more than that. It's a relationship. So this is the relationship we make with our bodies, we make with our world, we make with ourselves. All right, so that was the other thing I wanted to share with you in terms of my framework, and it is on this piece of paper that I will share with you. For those of you online, you'll get a picture, and for those of you in the room, I'll pass it around and you get to look at it and we'll interact about it. But the relationship we make with our world, we call Wei Qi in Chinese medicine. And in terms of working with cancer diagnosis, the treatment principle we use for that is tonifying upright Qi. That means, do you have the energy to interact with the method that you've chosen, right? Do you have the energy to meet the doctor, the hospital, the acupuncture? It doesn't matter. Do you have the energy to meet the world? That would be tonifying upright Qi or Wei Qi. And then how do you relate with your daily life? Do you have the energy to cook food? Do you sleep well? Do you have good elimination, right? This is in Chinese medicine what we call yin qi, the relationship we make with our daily going about our business. Sometimes we call that the primary channels. And in terms of cancer treatment, that's the principle we call detoxify. Because if you're gonna detoxify, your systems better be in good shape. Otherwise, you won't be able to do that, right? You won't be able to get rid of the things that are toxic to you, right? So again, I'm just sharing the language with you. In a certain sense, I don't think it's limited to any one modality, this language. I think it goes across them. But Chinese medicine is really beautiful this way because it gives us some kind of way of talking about it, right? So that's the relationship, you know, in a certain sense, we make with our bodies, right? So the relationship we make with our bodies, we can call that yin qi, yeah?
What is modality?
Modality, I mean therapy, or, you know, like what kind of therapy you choose, right? Whether, like I said, acupuncture or massage or Western medicine or homeopathy or Ayurvedic medicine or anything. Yeah, that's what I mean. Yep. So then there's a relationship we make with ourselves, to the aspect I referred to at the beginning, to our essence, to who we are, to what we're doing in this body, in this life. Like, what are we here for, right? So in Chinese thinking, we call that yuan qi, right? We call that essence. So the treatment principle for that I talk about is consolidating or reclaiming or nourishing. And we'll talk more about that. Depending on what you want to do in a given situation, you might do any of those things in terms of that relationship. There's a beautiful book by David White called The Three Marriages. Yeah, it's a great book, right? So he talks about these relationships also, although he calls them different things, but he's talking about the three different sort of demanding relationships in your life, one of which is with yourself, one is with your spouse, and one is with your work. But I think it fits into this model, right? So we don't leave out any of that, right? It's all equally important to think about. And as I was saying at the beginning, I have been for a long time obsessed with helping people meet their own essence. One of the ways I do this when I'm on retreat with people is I take their photograph, because in Chinese medicine we say that the spirit is in the Shen, the spirit shows in the eyes. And you know, we never see ourselves in the mirror the way that people see us. So it's fascinating to me, but I got introduced to this idea in mixing in photography, taking pictures from a contemplative standpoint, and I was just blown away what it was like to look at pictures of myself that someone spent 2 hours taking. It's horrifying and wonderful. And since that time, I have offered that to people who do retreats with me, because especially if you're working with a cancer process in your body, I think it shows you things that you need to know. And I don't need to know them once again. So, you know, it's not about a pretty picture, and I don't review them other than if they're blurry, I might eliminate them. But other than that, I just give them to you. Sometimes there's pages and pages. Sometimes it takes 2 or 3 hours. And then you get to spend some time seeing what you see about yourself, which is pretty cool. So, yeah, so that falls into this category as a modality. So one of the modalities that I use is photography, and that's the way I use it to help nourish, reclaim. So reclaim is actually a big part of that process, because sometimes we see things that we don't know are there, or that we missed and we wished we could have made a relationship with, and it's very powerful. Yeah. So before I go on, I also want to just really make it clear that I am not suggesting that what I'm offering is in any way replacing all of the other things that people do. Because I think, in fact, the opposite. I think that with the people that I've worked with, when they have been in this, the setting on retreat and focused, they actually go back to the other forms of treatment with an enhanced ability to use them for themselves. That's really my goal. Can you, again, make those choices and use those therapies for the most benefit, for the most power, and to know, you know, how that will work for you. So it doesn't replace regular forms of care in any way. Even more, it just gives you more to work with there, both as a client and as a practitioner. It can give you more, well, I always think that more informed and more participatory is better. So I'm very, so when people come on retreat with me, I do a lot of cooking. And that's just because I like to do a lot of cooking, but it's also because I think that two things. When people are on retreat, I don't want them to worry about getting the nourishment that they need, but I also want to show them the food I think will be supportive and ways to use it. And so, again, that's something that can't happen in a session when you go to your healthcare practitioner for an hour a week. Can't happen. They don't have time to do that. And I guess the other thing that I want to say about myself is that I've always been a little bit like, what's the word? I was born in the wrong time. I move at a slower pace, and I really enjoy hanging out with people in space. I really love when they sit at the table and I'm cooking and we get to chat. And there's something about that environment that, for me as a person and for the people I've worked with, has been very important. And I think it relates back to the fact that essence as a substance in your body, it moves on very slow time. So your essence changes very slowly. I like to say like mountains, right? So your your surface, your part of you that interacts with the world, it changes moment to moment. You move in the door, you move out the door, things change. Very accessible when it's changing very quickly. And this is the other beautiful thing about illness. When it's moving quickly, it's very accessible. You can actually ride it right then and there because it's happening now. The things that are happening on the yin level, they're happening inside you. They're not as visible. They're happening kind of on a 24, 48, 72 hours, even up to a month long, right? Isn't it in a month? I don't know, somebody in here might know, in a month, all your blood cells change or something. And 3 months from now, none of them will be the same or something like that. So that's the yin level, right? And that's food level. That's like food, exercise, sleep. That's like all your daily activity level, right? And then there's the essence level, which changes like mountains change. Like you can't tell that they're changing, right? You can't tell that it's changing. So Catherine and I have been working together for, well, you heard, I guess, 20 something, well, we've been working together for 20 years, but she's had a cancer diagnosis beginning in 2000. And I participated in her surgery and came here to Nova Scotia for a couple of months and got all bossy about what was happening in her household for a while. Because at that time I hadn't conceived of the idea of having people come to me or going to them in a concentrated period. So it was sort of the pilot program was me coming here and interfacing in her household when after the surgery so that we could set up the things that would be supportive for her. And I did that for a couple of months. It was just this time of year, in fact. And so I'm familiar with the ice and snow routine here in Nova Scotia, and I actually like it. But anyway, my point being that when you're working on the essence level, I think it does require slowing down on both the practitioner's part and on the client's part. We both have to slow down. We have to slow down so that it's possible to meet yourself in that way. Doesn't mean you don't meet yourself in all kinds of other ways, but it's special to meet yourself in that deep darkness. And another one of my favorite writers is a man named Peter Kingsley, he's a Greek translator. He wrote a book called In the Dark Places of Wisdom, and he talks about the tradition, Western tradition, of people doing what he calls incubating, where they went into a space that was protected, where there was no light, and they laid still until their questions were answered or they felt done. And people brought them food and water. And when I read that, I was like, yep, that's what I want to do. Seriously, I read it and I thought, oh my God, he had my idea. The reason is because I think there's something there that you can't get anywhere else in this world. We don't create those places where deep, deep resonance with our innermost being can happen. We're usually in constant motion. We're usually interfacing with our world. And there's nothing wrong with that. But in traditional times, there was a opportunity. There was at least the opportunity to do that and to go back and forth and to take from both situations. So I feel drawn to creating that in the world we live in. It's a little bit, takes some doing to do, but I think that it adds something to the process when you do that. And
so Josephine,
yes.
this would be a lot deeper than doing an hour of meditation.
Yeah.
It's just a really isolation, or you're being supported by other people. It's not like daily meditation as you're talking about.
Well, I'm talking about retreat situation is specifically what I'm offering, but that doesn't mean I don't often offer you things you take home, which might be daily, that you might incorporate after a retreat. But when we're on retreat together in general, and this is very vague because everybody's different. And so Catherine, again, she mentioned personal medicine, and I really do personalize every retreat. So I don't do the same thing with each person. Each person gets their own program customized to them, which is, in my mind, a huge perk of Chinese medicine. It has this capacity that Western medicine has many strengths, but one of them isn't customizing. Chinese medicine has many strengths. Among them is the capacity to embrace all forms of people and things with the language and the way in which it meets a situation. So, but in general, when people are on retreat with me, they're available, I'm available from probably 8 in the morning till 8 in the evening. And during that time, we have meals, we have walks, we have talks, we have treatments, we have little workshops, we have silence, all different things. And again, particularly this fall, when Catherine and I finally got to doing an extended, Catherine and I have done many things together, but this was our first time doing an extended situation. And I think for both of us, it demanded far more than either of us realized. And again, I think it's a very old way of being. I think it's something that humans have done for each other for as long as there have been humans, but that our world has lost touch with that possibility. That it's possible that just the presence of people in silent space can be very powerful. Sometimes we call that witnessing. And it's extraordinary, actually. I feel extraordinarily blessed, personally blessed, to witness others in their process. And often when I give treatments, I feel that that's what I'm doing, is basically witnessing someone else's movement. I am not inducing it, as sometimes is the case, and sometimes that's necessary. But when you work on the essence level, I feel that all I can do, it's like saying you've just met somebody, you don't often invite them into your personal closet, right? You don't when you've just met them say, come on in and see all my dirty underwear or my clean underwear, my beautiful underwear. I don't know. You don't do it, right? So when you invite someone to reckon with their own essence, you're in effect asking them to go somewhere while you're there that they wouldn't normally invite you. So I'm very aware of that. And so it really is about creating a space where that's possible emotionally as well as physically, right? So it doesn't, so many therapies are invasive, so many are moving in to the body in a way that can feel invasive, and that might be necessary. But from this point of view, it's actually about moving in by choice. And moving in by choice is what allows access to something that otherwise you can't get access to. When they move into your body with a knife, you have to be asleep. So the piece here that's different is I'm asking you to move in while you're awake. That's the meditation piece, the presence piece. Because only through your presence, through your light, can you access that essence, right? That piece that's there just for you. It's not for anybody else. Can't be for anybody else. Another writer, you can tell I'm a little obsessed with books, but anyway, he likes to say, he's an artist, Peter London, and he says, the only news you can use is your own, right? Only news you can use is your own. How exciting is that? I mean, I think it's exciting. And Well, I feel like it's so, it's precious, right? It's precious. I get to watch. Yeah. All right. I didn't know how much I was going to say here, but I just want to finish what's on this page, and then, you know, like, and please do keep asking questions anytime. And so the other piece about accessing that deep level, and this is a very interesting piece to me, is that vibration is the way we do that. So we vibrate. If we're going to use needles, we vibrate the needles. If we're going to use massage, we vibrate with our hands. If we're going to use Tai Chi, Qigong, we're going to jump up and down or pat our bodies. And if we're going to use yoga, we're going to compress and release the joint. We're going to make a wave that actually penetrates through the body, right? We're going to vibrate it. By doing that, we awaken or create a space for you to meet the essence. So sometimes one of the most ancient ways of doing that is rocking, right? Rocking. This is what we do with our children when we connect with them. What are we connecting? We're connecting our essence, our hearts with our children, right? When we hold them and we rock them. And we do this with other people too, right? We do this when people need us to do this. We do this naturally, right? We hold them, we rock them. So that is a way to open that level of being, open the essence to each other, to yourself, right? But it's harder to do to yourself, like, right? You know, you can do that with somebody else and somebody can do that with you, but how do you do that with yourself? So that's the question, right? How do we create the situation? And I won't say it's easy, but acupuncture needles make it easier, I should say, because you can vibrate them and you can put them where they will actually send that message to those parts of the body that hold essence, right? And then in theory, it becomes more available to you. But again, it's just an invitation from my point of view. Yeah.
Could you do that with pressure?
You could,
You
but
talk about needles, but actually pressure.
well, pressure. So this is a very interesting point. Pressure is actually on the yin level, the flesh, right? So if you want to activate the wei level, you move your sinews, you move your body. You want to activate the yin level, you create pressure. You use your hands or, you know, whatever. And of course, that's very natural. You do that. But if you want to awaken the essence, you have to do something that vibrates the body deeply. Yeah.
Question from online.
Yeah.
Do you think tuning forks create enough vibration to access essence?
Absolutely, they can. Mm-hmm. Yeah, sure. So that's a great method. And there's a lot of people experimenting with using sound as a form of vibration to awaken the body. And I think that's a beautiful way to do it. You also use light, which also has frequency. And different people are receptive to different forms that would do that, right? So that's the first one. The second one is reflection. Do you have a question? No? Okay. You'll be more dramatic if you have a question. Okay, good. So reflection is sort of like what I was talking about earlier, the willingness, and willingness is a very important piece here. Willingness has related to choice, right? So really important that one is willing and accepting of what they see when they look inside. So for me, reflection has two aspects. It has the aspect of being willing to look and the aspect of accepting what you see when you look. So So that's something you do with yourself. And in theory, you want to do that when you don't feel like anybody's going to get in your way, right? Like you need to kind of be alone for that sometimes. And it's not, again, most of these things are not particularly new or unusual. Like many people do this anyway. I am talking about doing it in a contained and specific way that amplifies what you get from it, right? When I set you up for reflection, I often ask questions. I don't ask you to answer them. Questions for me, and I love questions because I think they open what we call in Chinese medicine the heart-kidney axis, right? When you actually ask a question of yourself and let it penetrate your being, you can, if you wish, receive information from the depths of your being if you don't answer it right away, right? And I'm really good at asking tough questions. Besides the, what do you want to do before you die, which most people find a pretty tough question. I like to ask, what does health mean to you? And how will you know when you're healthy? I'm just giving you a few examples. And these are the everyday ones. These are the ones I ask when I meet people. One of the most, that, again, for me, that was provocative for me when I was introduced to that idea that it was important for me to contemplate. And again, I get very excited at what that does when you ask questions and create the space for them for you to have a reflection, or for me to have my own reflection. And so that's another way to access your essence, to pose questions you can't answer automatically and create the space for contemplation. So we could call that reflection and contemplation. And then we have resonance. And resonance is what we're doing right now. We're here together talking about something that matters to all of us. And we're awakening a vibration that resonates for us, right? So that is also very important because it brings in the aspect of community. And another writer who I love, Dina Metzger, who wrote a book called Entering the Ghost River, Meditations on the Theory and Practice of Healing. She says that cancer cells are cells that have been excommunicated from the body. And what we need to do is bring them back into the fold, bring them back to the table. These are not sort of like, they're not, it's kind of like the question of, do you put them in jail or do you, what do you call that? Re-educate them, or, put them back in society, people who've done things that we think are rehabilitate. Menopausal brain. Anyway, so this brings me to another thing that I say to people all the time. I will not make war, because where there's war, there are casualties. And thank you very much. I would prefer not to make war. So what are your choices if that's the case? Well, I think love is the choice. So the question is, how can we love those things that have been excommunicated, that have been marginalized, isolated, or otherwise demonized, that in fact we can't get rid of? We can't get rid of them. From some point of view, there's nothing to get rid of. And the whole thing of how you can get rid of these things that we think are bad is like, now you're investing resources in maintaining a form of containment. And this is another way to talk about the way the body manages those cells that are replicating this way. It has to use energy to contain them. So one of the things we do is we think about how we can reconcile or find a different way to relate with them so that we don't have to invest in a process that's not bringing us home, right? Investing in a process that's distracting, you could say, from our main things we want to do in this life. And for everybody, that's a different story, you could say, a different examination, because you're who you are. So there's no one way to look at that. But I think it's an important thing to look at. You know, what are you going to do with yourself in this life? And what do you want to do? What will it take to get there? What are the resources you need? And how will you marshal those resources when you want them? Right? And yeah, so yeah, divide and conquer to me is not a productive strategy. It's one that maintains a huge investment in energy all the time. To divide and conquer, you must continue to invest. It's like road work, constant road work. So I think there's another way. Yeah.
Another question.
Mm-hmm.
How does that dialogue differ with cancer from an external toxin versus an obvious emotional source?
Can you repeat that?
Yeah. How does that dialogue differ with cancer from an external toxin versus an obvious emotional source?
Well, the dialogue in each person doesn't differ at all. So it doesn't matter where it came from. It matters that you are willing to relate with it when it's happening. Right? Doesn't matter where it came from. So whether or not that toxicity that generated, you could say, some toxicity generates or harms the body in such a way that toxicity is created, right? That's true, right? There are toxins in the world. They come into the body. They damage cells. Yes, happens. Okay, what's going on here? Can we stop that? Thank you. I forgot to say turn off the phone. Yeah, so once it doesn't matter where that toxicity came from. That's the neutrality, the witness part of this process, right? There's no blame. It's not about where it came from. It's about what are you going to do with it now. It doesn't matter where it came from. And I think it's true. All of it is true that there are toxicities in our world, in our emotional life. But I'm concerned with how you can relate with what you want to do about it now. And there's lots of different ways, right? Lots of different ways. Yeah.
Just to add something into that, I totally agree. But in order to get to that place where it doesn't matter and how so this is the situation I'm in. Let's deal with it now. There's that space before that that might involve forgiveness or surrender or letting go or those things that need to actually not be stuffed down because there's pain there, and you need to be able to release that to be able to take the next step forward.
Yeah, absolutely. Great. Thank you. Yes. Yes. Mm-hmm.
My understanding is that medically speaking, we always have cells that are like aberrant, that are wonky, that aren't doing what they're supposed to be doing, and that your body has a natural mechanism to terminate those cells. Like maybe they're called T cells or something like that.
Yeah.
And that one thing that happens when cancer develops is that mechanism isn't functioning as it should, and so the wonky cells increase and blah blah blah. So, but we're talking about something very different than that. So, is what you're talking about related to that, or is it just a whole different way of looking at it, or what?
I think it's coexistent with that. I'm not saying that's not happening.
Yeah.
I am saying that by working with the body in a different way, that can not be happening. So it is possible to reorganize that relationship. So what you're talking about, cells that are supposed to do one thing and are doing something else, I think that through relating differently with the body, it's possible to change that. And I've seen that it is possible, right? So, again, each person's situation is different, but just to give you a simple example, one of the ways that we talk about replication in Chinese medicine is heat, right? Heat causes things to move and expand and accelerate, right? So if I have somebody who's currently experiencing that, I'm going to do things that are going to help reduce heat in the body and thereby slow or stop that movement. Can be done. So from a Western point of view, they're going to go back and say, how'd you do that? That's a miracle, it stopped. And from my point of view, I'm going to say it's very simple. So to me, that's the power of looking in what I would call a neutral way at that process. So Western medicine has a way of looking at it. I'm not saying that's wrong, but I am saying that by looking at it in this way, you might actually have power to change that, right? Which to me, that's pretty exciting, right? Yeah, good. Yeah, was there another question? No? Okay. So the last thing on here that I haven't already mentioned, and I'll just mention it, and then we'll just open the things up for all kinds of conversation. And I sort of have already talked about this, but the idea that there needs to be protected space. Sorry. And I think we've talked a bit about that. Just creating a space where people feel they can make that relationship that might be new, might be different than anything they've ever done before. And it might be outside their comfort zone. And I really do everything I can to make people comfortable, actually. Kind of goes against some of our upbringing, doesn't it? I like there to be a good bathtub and lots of good food. And yeah, how do we create that space where somebody feels okay to go deep sea diving, however you want to look at that, or do the forgiveness that they need to do, or create the space for reckoning with some very painful, difficult obstacles, right? We might meet obstacles there. And truly, I believe that if you can connect with your essence in this way, that you can remove any obstacle you wish. That we can do that. We can penetrate those obstacles. It is sometimes time sensitive. Time sensitive relates to Wei Qi. So remember I was talking about how Wei Qi moves very fast. So when things are moving very fast, and this is one of the times that I feel like it's really good to call me up. When things are moving really fast, that means that your Western doctor is telling you you have to make a decision right away, and you feel confused, and you feel afraid, and you don't know because you don't have time to gather all the information that you want, right? So that's a demand from the way level, external level. We have to respect it. It's kind of like the weather, but we do have choices about how we relate with it, right? So protected space is important. It means that we limit the way the outside world can interfere with your process for at least a little bit of time. a little bit of time. The minimum time in my current thinking is 3 days, the minimum time. I used to run retreats at my home in Vermont, and what I did was people came on Monday, in the middle of the day, and they left on Friday in the middle of the day. 3 days is the minimum one. Most of the ones that I did before this year were usually 5, and they were great, wonderful, and at this point I'm leaving it wide open to see what people need. But I do think that 3 days is kind of a minimum for reaching those deeper layers and feeling that you can. And that the second one I wrote here is extended time. So for many people, 3 days is extended time. For some of us who've done much solitary retreat, it might not sound like very much, 3 days. But for some people, that's a huge amount to take out from their life, right? 3 weeks, which is what Catherine and I did, almost 3 weeks, was a lot and also amazing, right? So, and also that's not available to everybody, but, and then I wrote resting. And I think I talked about that a little earlier, just that a huge part of what is important is resting. It's a funny thing. We tend to overvalue or make higher value on doing. But in this process, especially in relating with the essence, being is even more important. So that's just another feature, which is not easy to sell, so to speak. I can't tell you how many times I've said to people, if you could just rest between 3 in the afternoon and 7 in the evening, it would be great. And how many times people have said, no way, I have to pick my kids up from school. I can't do that. I know. So that's why, again, I'm offering the retreat setting as a way to actually get something you don't necessarily make space for in your daily life for probably good reasons sometimes. And the last one here is allowing. It's kind of like letting go, but it's not quite like letting go. Allowing is not knowing what's going to come up in a given day and allowing the day to show you. So it's another important aspect of relating to yourself, because the essence, again, it's a blueprint that you got when you were born, when you were conceived, really. Born was actually after that. So when you were conceived, you got this special, unique, and amazing combination of things that came together, and you didn't necessarily get a choice of what combination, although some people think you choose your parents. I don't think I want to go there right at the moment, but because there's mothers and daughters in this room. Some generational thing. I love it. I love it. But I guess my point is that it's a subtle but important difference that we begin to allow and accept the fact of who we are to be our guide in our lives. This has tremendous power. And I know that Catherine would say to you that early on in this process, we had this very interesting encounter, so I feel okay about sharing it, where we were in the office with the surgeon who removed the lump. And basically, she said to Catherine, if you want chemo, just go to the oncologist. That was how she said it. If you want chemo, go see the oncologist. If you don't go, basically. It's an interesting thing to say. It never occurred to me to think of it that way. And she didn't, so she didn't. But very few people feel supported in making choices like that, right? And of course, I have supported her in that choice. And in fact, her surgeon continues to support her in that choice. And so I think the power of your choices comes from your power in making them. And so that's my goal. Give you the best power to make your own choices. So I think that's all I want to say about this. I'll pass it around. People want to look at it. And I don't know. We're here.
Is this a heart?
It could be. It could be. It could be a heart.
A question from online.
Yeah.
On a practical note, how does one cool, reduce, and resolve toxicity if a person is totally depleted?
Good question.
Could you repeat that?
Yeah, the question is, how does a person
Cool, reduce, and resolve toxicity if a person is totally depleted?
Right, when someone is depleted, right? Yeah. So the first thing you have to do when heat is taking the upper hand, it's just like a wildfire, what do? Right? You contain it. You contain it. So there's lots of different things you can do with heat. You can open the windows, that's called ventilation. You can drain it. What's that like? That's like pouring water on it and then having to pump out the basement. If you did it in your house, I'm trying to stick with the house metaphor, but it might not work, but let's see. Consolidating or containing the essence so that it doesn't get burned, used as fuel for the fire, which it will be if it isn't protected, is critical in that situation. And what that does is create something in my language I call latency. And it's not popular in this world, latency, just like it's not popular to incubate or lay still. Because latency means you put something to sleep for a while until you can deal with it. And people don't like this because they really prefer detoxification. Our culture really prefers to get rid of stuff. I appreciate why you would want to do that. Believe me, I do. But if somebody is depleted, they don't have the energy to take out the garbage, you can't make them do it. You have to create the conditions where it's okay for the garbage to stay there a little while longer. You need to bag it up and put it in a cool place and help them get some rest. All right? So I'm not saying that's an easy situation because it probably is one of the most difficult ones that I face. And I tell this story a lot because it makes people laugh, is that, you know, I had a client that I actually took her one day and put her in my basement where it was cold and damp because she was so heated up, she could not tolerate the light in my house, right? So I set up the table in the basement and let her lay down there, the lights off, because it was hot out and I didn't have air conditioning and there was no other way to keep her comfortable. And, you know, it's funny because there was, you know, the worm compost right next door to her and another, you know, the washing machine and the dryer, but it was also helpful. So, yeah, putting out fires is not an ideal situation, but sometimes we have to do it. right? And when you pour water on the fire, you get glop, no doubt, but you'll have to deal with that at another time, right? And the thing about buying time in this manner is that then your choices get to be clear, right? Yeah. I don't know. Hope that was good, whoever asked that. But ask more if it wasn't. Yeah.
Building on that, if one has burned out, there has been real damage, neurological damage, stress, is it still a workable situation?
I think that completely depends on the situation. If you come to me, I will never turn you away in that situation if you want this kind of help. I will also be as honest as I can be, because I think that the tools that I have are good for determining what your resources are under those circumstances. And sometimes it's a matter of marshaling the resources to a place where they need to go. And sometimes it's a matter of getting you the resources that you don't have. And sometimes it's a matter of helping you reckon with where you find yourself. But any of those can be helpful. I know that I have worked with people in many dire situations. When I first got out of acupuncture school for the first year, I worked at the Haight-Ashbury Free Medical Clinic treating AIDS patients for an hour. They were in these tiny little rooms. And I treated them, well, so I did men at the Haight-Ashbury Free Medical Center, and at the Lion Martin Women's Clinic, I did women who were HIV positive, and most of them were drug users and prostitutes. And many of them died. Many of them were in impossible situations. And what I found is that it's possible to be completely healthy and die tomorrow or today. That their health was not dependent on saving their body, but on meeting them where they were. And so for me, that's my goal, really. And do whatever I can to make it possible for them to do what they want to do. Yeah, so. And it's true that some cancer process in particular, can get the upper hand at certain times. There is no question about that. But I have great confidence that people feel strong and well when they can meet what's happening directly. That's my confidence. So, yeah.
Can you repeat the question? For the
Or
audience
maybe I
online?
should repeat the question.
Okay.
I don't know. Can you repeat it and then I'll repeat it?
I think for someone who actually has experienced burnout,
Right.
significant enough where there's obviously some damage, some neurological damage
Right.
can happen. And is there a way to, in a sense, bring them back to health if their essence has been damaged?
Right. So Alan is asking if people have had burnout and had damage, say neurological damage, if it's possible to bring them back to a healthy place. And I think I'm saying yes.
Beyond adrenal exhaustion.
Right. Can we go beyond adrenal exhaustion? And yes, that definitively yes. Complicated by replication process is another matter. Yeah.
There are a couple more questions online.
Sure, great.
Can you give an example of how you would support the essence while not feeding the fire?
Absolutely. So the question is, how can I support the essence while not feeding the fire? So essence is the most cold, most dense substance in the body. By nourishing the essence, I create cold. Therefore, the fire cannot coexist. Right?
How can you say the essence is cold?
How can I say that?
I would say depends on that person or.
Well, let's just, so how can I say, it's a good question. How can I say the essence is
What do you
cold?
mean by?
Yeah, that's good. That's helping me. What do I mean? I mean that it's the substance that changes at the slowest rate in the body. So slow rate of change is cold. Cold slows things down, right? And heat speeds things up. So in the range of things that are operating in the body, you certainly have what we call functional fire. You might have what we call pathological fire, fire that's having no purpose except to play and have some fun at your expense. And you have essence, which, you were born with an essence that's essentially the same as when you die. That's how slow it changes. Whereas your skin changes, you cut yourself and within a few days it's been repaired. It's changed. So there's an element of heat there. Has to be. Yeah. So when we nourish the essence, we induce cold. We bring cold into the body. And there's lots of ways to do that. One of the main ways that you can do it on your own is by resting, by stopping your activities, by stopping interacting. This is a little off topic, but we had this discussion the other day. I said there would be no need for controlling whether or not kids needed vaccinations if people would just keep their kids home when they were sick, because viruses thrive on interaction. You send the kids to school, the viruses are going to have a heyday. You keep them at home where they're quiet and they don't interact, they're probably going to run their course. So, I'm for keeping your kids home instead of legislating whether or not people get vaccinations, because it seems to me to be far more effective.
There's another
Yeah.
question.
Yeah.
Is it possible for people to engage with you remotely for healing/retreat, perhaps in conjunction with a local practitioner?
Is it possible to engage remotely? I definitely engage with people remotely, but retreats have to be live and in person. But I also love to interact with your local practitioner. I love to, support them and you in any way. So, just for example, Catherine and I work together in person about once a quarter, and she works with other practitioners here in Nova Scotia, and that's ongoing. And sometimes I talk to them, and sometimes she talks to them, and it's a community, it's a group, it's a team effort, right? Yeah, yeah, it's a team effort. Yeah, which I love. Yeah, after a lot of years, I have been practicing for a lot of years, and I've been teaching for a lot of years, and it's really my favorite thing in the world, really, to support other practitioners in how they work with people, because that's just where I'm at. That's just where I've come to in my life, is that I love to work one-on-one with people in this extended retreat format because it suits me personally very well. And I love to support other people in doing that regular treatment because that's what they love to do. And that works well. Yeah.
Getting in here a little late. Are retreats like a scheduled thing? Like you have a block of time at your place, or if people go to Vermont, or you do them around? Yeah. You just don't know the logistics.
Yeah. So this is just a question about the logistics of a retreat. And I don't live in Vermont anymore. I used to live in Vermont, and people used to come to my place at that time. And now I live in North Carolina now, part of the time. Well, that's a little better weather, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. Well, yeah, and where I am now, people can come to me, but I am also, what's that?
What city?
I live in Asheville. Well, I actually live in Weaverville, which is a couple miles from the Blue Ridge Parkway up in the mountains. And I live on a farm, a fruit and berry farm. It's quite lovely. And people can come there, but I've also offered to come to people, because especially people who are in a situation where they can't travel or wouldn't want to travel. And I'm open to that because that sounds like fun to me. So, yeah.
Is there somebody like you here? And we can see, I didn't even know you didn't live here.
Uh-huh.
Oh,
Is there somebody like me here? There's lots of people.
Can I say something in response to that?
Great disappointment.
I've been friends with Josephine for close to a year. She has treated me in one form or another for a fair portion of that, and I tried to find someone like her here so we wouldn't be relating that way. And no.
No?
Well,
But there are many people who treat in different modalities, as
Yes.
she said,
Yeah.
that she supports and can work with, and then, supplement with that kind of direct,
Yeah.
treatment that she offers,
Oh, dear.
and working with other people.
well, there are many people who excel at the various things that they do, including Chinese medicine and Western medicine and massage and all different kinds of treatment modalities. What I'm proposing at this time is completely a work in progress, which is to say, I, for more than one reason, feel that I'm adding, not making a substitution for anything else. And I realize that that's a little also of a concept that might be a stretch. In other words, what I'm offering through what I'm doing, partly I just want to get the word out that there's a way to work that offers a wider range of insight and possibility. Because I think with this way of looking at things, you can assess things like chemo and radiation and various other modalities with more strength and power to those choices, because you will understand.
Radiation.
No, I'm not against anything.
They're just
Remember?
choices. Yeah.
I don't believe in war.
No.
It's too much work. So it's really not about that to me. And so I see what I'm doing as adding, enriching, growing, rather than substituting or subtracting or anything like that.
It seems a healthier way of looking at it somehow.
I hope it's healthy.
Yeah,
Yes, I
yeah.
think it is. I think that it is, and yeah, and that's why I'm hoping to talk about it to people, because I don't feel like I need to keep it. I think it needs to be shared.
So you carry a website?
I do have a
You
website.
have a website.
Yeah, I'll share that with you for sure.
Haven't written any books?
I am working on it. Believe
Okay.
me, I am working on it. I am working on it. That is high on my list. I do write little blog posts, but they're not always about this. Yeah.
An online member says, we are being asked to make a decision about radiating advanced brain tumors this week. Without it, the doctor is saying less than a month for survival. How would you guide us in making this decision with your approach when it needs to happen so quickly?
Cannot answer that, I'm afraid, without seeing somebody in person, right? That would be practicing very bad medicine, right? Because personal medicine is tailored to the person. In general, radiation creates heat, right? It's a method that creates heat. It encourages replication. That's how it kills cells, right? They die because they're so exhausted from replicating. So in general, that's something I can say about radiation, is that in general, it creates heat. I can't say about how it would work for a particular person, because I have no idea what their body is saying right now, unfortunately. I am happy to talk to anyone who's in that situation, more than happy to talk to them. So encourage them to be in touch with me, and I'll be happy to talk with them so that maybe they feel they can make that decision. But it would be irresponsible of me to say what that would mean for a given individual. Personal medicine means really, it's personal. And yeah. Yeah.
You were talking about lying in the dark to connect with your essence and hear some answers to whatever. Are you talking literal darkness?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And for how long? When you're talking about lying in the dark?
I don't know. Could be. I've done it for 3 days. That's the one I did with myself. I did this a few years ago. Well, the first one I did was like, I think 5 years ago when I first decided I was going to try it myself. And it was a little bit modified because I didn't have anybody taking care of me. And the second time I did it, I really, really did darkness in the sense of no lights. But I did it, it wasn't dark because it was daylight and I was in my house.
Well, that's my next question.
Yeah,
You
and I
block
still
the
wish that,
windows or-
yeah, I didn't. But I think if I thought that this was appropriate, I would. But I would be sure I was taking care of somebody. In other words, I don't think you can do that without somebody watching the space for you, as I think that would be dangerous.
And the practice while you're in the dark, is it nonverbal, totally
Nonverbal, yeah. I had my sleeping bag, my water, and I laid on the floor, basically. Yeah. And
You know, the shotgun has this dark retreat.
I do.
stick
The
going. I don't know
dark
if it's going
retreat
much-
stick.
It's not going much, but
Well,
it
this
exists.
is a good, yeah. Can I use it as a question to talk about a little bit?
If you choose to.
Yeah.
I don't know anything about it really.
Well, I don't know anything about that, but I know that it's a
There's a practice.
tradition, a practice. Yes.
Yeah,
There's
it's not just lying in the dark without non-verbal.
well, in that practice,
Maybe non-verbally, but there's something going on like that.
yeah, and that they're looking at Bardo. They're looking at 49 days, I think. So for those of you who don't know, we're talking about a Buddhist meditation practice that I know of in several contexts. I mean, one is in the Shambhala context, but I have come in, Tenzin Wangyal Rinpoche does the dark retreat with his students, and it's a very different purpose.
Okay.
So my purpose in introducing the idea of incubation, and I probably wouldn't recommend it for more than 3 days, probably, is to allow somebody to really go to places that they wouldn't otherwise go, but certainly not to push the envelope in terms of their capacity or their comfort. So this is actually a really interesting point. I often recommend different dietary things for people, and you know, when people get cancer diagnosis, they often get fasting or different kinds of diet. And what I want to say about that is it's about relaxation, not deprivation. Relaxation, not deprivation. So we are not talking about depriving the body. We're actually talking about taking the burden away, taking the stress away, and allowing, remember back to the allowing part of the conversation. How can we allow the body to do the healing it knows how to do, that it wants to do? All bodies want to heal. All bodies want to heal. They are wired for healing. They will heal. We just have to take the burdens away, take the stress away so that they can heal, right? So we're talking about taking stress away. So we're not talking about creating stress. So I think sometimes those practices create stress of a certain variety. So for me, incubation would be a way of taking stress away, not adding stress. And I looked at it that way for myself when I did it, that, you know, I did it at the winter solstice, which is a really good time to lay still and just to explore what that would be like if I gave myself those days to just be still and not engage at all. and see how that nourished me.
What'd you find?
You can read about it on my blog.
We
Yeah.
have a hand raised
Yeah.
online. So I'll unmute her.
Yeah.
Okay. Susan, are you there? Susan Miller, are you there?
Yep.
I saw your
Oh,
hand was
good.
up.
There you go.
Did you have a question?
Nope.
Oh, okay.
So Josephine, I have a curiosity.
Sure.
In looking at the prevention side versus,
Mm.
you know, being on the other side of the diagnosis. So,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I work in hands-on therapy, doing craniosacral work and massage, and starting to dabble with the Chinese method. And so one of the things that I've felt a bit obsessed about is working with a similar idea of being stress-free.
Yeah.
So how do we make choices in our life that make us feel good versus things that contract us or stress us out?
Right.
So that conversation is very common in my practice.
Yes.
Okay, well, why do you do that if it stresses you out? Why do you keep going to your job if you don't like it? Why are you engaged in these kinds of situations that create stress? So my curiosity is, you know, from fetal development onward, we know that cells contract under stress. Fetal cells contract when there's maternal stress, and how that is carried on. And so knowing that maybe there's some things that we can do around relaxing or just being in general through our life as a preventative, or what I assume could be preventative for things like cancer.
Yeah.
When we are then in a state of dis-ease, are we working with preventing that continued growth, or are we then meditating on a process of actually shrinking? And I use that language actually because we talk about shrinking tumors, but in healing dialogue, we want to expand. So I don't know if you get.
I will try. I'm gonna say it again for the mic anyway, so correct me if I'm not reading the question correctly, but I think you're asking how do we both keep our heart open, expand, and manage stress, or if we think that we have to manage it by shrinking or contracting in that process, and is that natural, or how would we think of that if we were trying to prevent the development of something, or is that sound right? Or
No, I'm not articulating myself on that way. So I think through our life, we need to be, heart-centered and open, and making choices that make us feel good and relaxed and soft. The world is not designed for that to work for us, right? Most of the time,
not our current
get to
situation.
do that,
Right.
And in my experience, I'm very curious that stress can be more likely the most underlying reason we get cancers. There can be toxins, there are all kinds of things, but it seems like from my understanding of some Chinese medicine, we're influenced, and these things are coming at us all the time. And it's really about, how strong we are and how we react, or how our body and immunity or whatever. So then you receive a diagnosis, and then you're going into a space to again continue to be soft and open, or restful, whether it's in darkness or in light or whatever that might be. How do we really work with that when we're battling brain tumors and prostate tumors and breast?
So I hope, rather than try to rephrase, can I just respond? Because I think this is an issue of flexibility and resilience, which is the way I would describe healthy Wei Qi. So our lungs, for example, which disseminate Wei Qi, have to be permeable membrane. They can't be impermeable membrane. We do not get stronger by having an impermeable membrane. Let me say it that way. That strength actually comes from flexibility and resilience. So how do we get flexibility would be my question. Because if the wind blows and you can't move with it, you feel harmed. If the wind blows and you go with it, you feel like you're dancing. Right? So the question then is, how can we be flexible so that when the wind blows, we feel like we're dancing? This is a big question, right? So that we aren't going to be able to stop what life throws at us. We can't change the weather. We can't change the way people are being. We can, however, dance with that. But what do we need in order to do that dance? We need adequate fluids, adequate rest, adequate energy, right? We need those things. How are we going to get them? We're going to get them by paying attention. So this is where the meditation piece comes in, right? Where Catherine was talking about in the beginning, that paying attention moment to moment to what the body is saying and being willing, that's those kidneys, being willing to respond to your body, not somebody else's body. You know, so for example, Robert likes to keep it kind of warm in here. And I have to take my sweater off, put my sweater on, take my sweater off, put my sweater on, drink my cups of tea, then start sweating, then take my, you know. So just as a minor and silly example, the question for me would be, well, you know, do I get up my courage and say, could you please just turn the heat down? Or do I just wear different clothes? Or do I sit around and be mad and, you know, cross my legs and pout? You know, I have options in how I choose to relate to that. And I think that's the key. I think the key is learning how to pay attention so that you have options and knowing what to do with those options. So frequently I tell my clients to walk around with a bottle of Quadraton. And if they feel the slightest prickle at the back of their neck or a sense of cold, they take it. But I can't be there to tell them to take it. They have to be willing to tell themselves to take it, right? I mean, and again, that's a simple
Take what?
cinnamon twig decoction. Cinnamon twig decoction. You know, but my point is not what they're taking, but the fact that they're willing to take it, because I'm willing to educate them about what would be the signs that they would need to take it. I can't manage their stress any better than that because I can't stop what's happening for them. They have to take responsibility for, this is time to stop, drink of water, go to the bathroom, have a little shot of cinnamon twig decoction or whatever, right? So I've said this a lot in the teaching that I've done. It seems so simple, but it is critical. And if we cannot pay attention in this way to our own bodies, we have no access to this sort of finely tuned machine, if you want to call it a machine, being, animal, live thing, that has every piece of information we need if we listen. So I think we're talking about how can we listen in that way. And I do think it's a matter of tuning, if you will, tuning in. I think we have the gear, we have the faculties, but we don't often have, we're either moving too fast or we don't want to accept it, or sometimes it is just moving too fast. That does happen. You know, there are some things that move through a school that just, you can't stop them. They're going to move through and everybody's going to get sick sometimes. Not a sin. It's just an, you know, it's just an event. I don't know. Is that helpful? Maybe not enough. Keep going. It's okay.
Yeah, I don't know. I could take up a lot of space. Yeah.
Well, I think it's an important question because I think what you're saying is true. It's a big issue, and we can talk more, you and I, just in depth about some of that. But I think it is for everyone, that piece of how you keep your heart open. How do you stay open while the world is throwing all kinds of crap at you? And that takes an enormous amount of courage in certain ways, but also willingness. And I don't think it takes strength, because we're not talking about cranking the window open. We're talking about radiating warmth, love.
Yeah, well, what I feel is like creating the culture in our communities, right? And so I hear what you're offering,
yeah.
and at the same time,
Yeah.
I feel like, well, you need a whole community
Yes.
to support people to have the space to do what you're offering.
Yes.
And you can
Yes.
feel it in this room when people hear you're not from here. Oh, you're not
Right.
here? Oh,
Right.
shit. Right?
Yes.
And so it is,
Yes.
it's like how, because it's a community, we need
Yes.
an effort from
Yes.
multiple
Yes.
places to support us to
Yes.
do that.
Yes.
Right? Instead of, again, we kind of isolated with, our relations or our partners, and then you need more than that.
Mm-hmm. Yes, thank you. Yes. So Becky is saying we need a community, and totally agree.
So when are you
And-
planning on moving?
I don't think it's a matter of me moving here. I think the community, gosh, how do I want to say this? We have to keep talking in this way. We have to keep the conversation alive. For me, it's not just local community, although it can be and must be in every place we go, but it's also strengthening yourself through the larger, how I want to say this. For me, it's again on all levels, right? It's on all levels. There's no question. There have to be the local support, but there also has to be larger support. And the only way I know to do that is to keep talking about it. I don't know what else to do myself. I'm gonna try to write a book, but who knows what it will say. Yeah, but you're right. Absolutely. I find great consolation in other writers too, myself, and in other teachers, and in teaching. And teaching is the way that I feel connected. So yeah, so we just
Okay.
can we?
You can go first.
Okay. I am getting a little bit of a backlog here.
Oh, all
my
right.
question.
Sorry.
So this one's got a bit of a backstory. I have a patient who constantly searches the internet and seeking new doctors and diagnostics, almost like searching for a cancer diagnosis. She has been coming for AccuTreatments for a year and is very resistant to my suggestion to just be and focus on other things and stay away from the internet. I have started treating her anxieties and OCD about this with essential oils now, and I see slight improvement in her mood. Is there something else I can do to help her break the overzealousness to find something? Like find a diagnosis, I guess it means.
Well, essential oils will be very helpful, for sure. It sounds to me like she might need some meditation instruction. That would be my other thought. Something to help her work with her mind, because it's her mind driving that pattern. And there's lots of that around. Yeah, go ahead.
Go ahead.
There's something about the cold and the heat thing that I'm needing help unpacking more. There's so many different ways of looking at cold and heat, and I think that there's the layers of like the actual physical cold and heat, and then I think the other aspects of what you're talking about, and it's getting confusing in my mind. So for example, in a case of pain and applying cold and heat. Like right now, I'm in pain. I have trouble keeping warm, so lots of layers. My hands are freezing. And so there's this aspect of generating heat, having not doing raw food, all hot stuff, because it takes energy, and I'm trying to rebuild and jumpstart my energy. So there's that aspect, and in being in dealing with pain and applying heat and trying to, from one perspective that I understand, drawing it out, so that something's coming to the surface that wants to be released. And so just being with all of that and loving it all, and as opposed to pushing it away, which I sort of relate the cold of like pushing it away. And so there's like I often say like there's more health in me than not, and there's a fire in me to keep to keep going, and so this I'm trying to figure, and there's all these conflicting things about applying cold and heat and stuff. I don't know, from being an athlete to whatever. But the essence is the most cold. I mean, maybe it's just that word that I'm hung up on, but I'm just trying to make sense. There's something not quite connecting in my mind right now.
So I think it's good to remember that cold and heat are not opposing forces. It's what we call a paradox. How is it that both cold and heat exist, and in the body it's never absolute? You are never all one or all another. There must be both. They're mutually embracing, right? So the question is really a question of how you organize or utilize heat. So functional fire, I mentioned before to Steve, functional fire is very important. In Chinese medicine, we distinguish, we discriminate. Which systems are we nourishing to promote functional fire? And where is there pathological fire? Two different places. So we're not going to clear functional fire. If we do that, you won't be able to live well, right? And cold, in the sense of unlove, is something we would never promote. But cold in the sense of stillness is something we would want to create. So they aren't opposing in that sense, but it is important to distinguish where we want what. We're not going to put cold where we want heat.
So I can relate to stillness and being.
Perfect. Yeah.
I just have never attached the word cold into that.
Yeah, and it's one of the challenges of what I'm doing right now, trying to talk to people using what I would call energetic language, and it's easy to sort of move it over into some other language. So I think the easiest way to relieve yourself of that concern is just to know that both are necessary, and they're not at odds. So there's some places in your body that need heat and some places that need cold.
So when you have
Go ahead.
When you have a part that's in pain,
Yes.
Is it completely individual, or is there a certain?
Yeah. It's completely individual, right? Impossible to say whether that pain is caused. We know, in some sense, we know it's caused by some obstruction, but we don't know the nature of that obstruction. I can't know because I haven't done the investigation that might tell me. So you might know, but I wouldn't know. Yeah. And so for each person, that could be very different. Now, pain medications in general are anesthetizing, cold making.
I don't have anything that works for me.
Yeah, well, that's probably because it's not from heat that you experience that pain sensation. Because if it were, those pain medications would work. because they induce cold. So this is a really good example of the way in which I choose to help people understand when something isn't working. The question is, why not? So if I know that pain medications induce cold and they're not working for you, then I'm going to say it's not coming from cold, or from heat. I'm sorry, not coming from heat, or it would be working.
Yeah, and I know from the healers that I'm working with that it's a combination of deep, energetic, emotional pain stored in the body that's coming up in combination with structural, in combination with scar and things that have happened.
Sure.
So it's
sure, but the treatment would have to be individualized. And when I create treatments or prescriptions, they are more like painting a picture than they are like allopathic remedy, right? So an allopathic remedy means it's hot, I give you cold. It's cold, I give you hot. It's never like that because you're a person. So instead, you get a prescription that looks like you. Some of it's hot, some of it's cold, some of it's sour, some of it's sweet, some of it's, spicy. It just looks like the person. So when that happens, your body says, whoa, great, I can work with this. And then the situation changes, right? Then you need something else a month later. So what I have questioned, which is quote unquote protocols, right? Where somebody does a protocol for an extended period of time. Because at some point, I feel sure that will no longer be relevant. Might be relevant for some period of time. The one size fits all will be relevant to 50% of the people for 25% of the time. But at some point, it won't be. Because bodies change and they adapt, and you change and you adapt, and therefore it has to change. Which is challenging, but also great. Because that's what gives you the potential for the change you want to see. And makes it fun for those people helping you. Yeah. Oh, okay. One online, one on person. Yeah? Is that okay? Yeah, go ahead.
You may have actually sort of answered this already. Heather says, do you have an opinion on whether a natural protocol should be a singular approach? Can they be counterproductive? For example, one diet that is oxidizing cells while taking a medication that is antioxidant.
Yeah, something that you have to be careful of is, creating a situation where one therapy is working against another, right? So again, that's going to be completely individual, but that's a good example of something that you would want insight on. For me, I wouldn't use that terminology to determine because I'm practicing Chinese medicine. So I would be framing it in terms of probably hot and cold or yin and yang. And, I would be thinking of it as, again, in the same way that I was talking about, but that's the same idea. Yeah. So, yeah.
And one more.
Yeah.
I appreciate and resonate with the speed at which essence changes. Does an hour with the patient allow time for this work, or are the practitioners who work in this context only able to access yin and wei qi?
Well, okay, so wei qi can be accessed instantly, right? And certainly in an hour, somebody who knows what they're doing and wants to access the essence can invite somebody to do that in an hour. Absolutely. Whether or not you choose to accept the invitation in an hour is another matter. And I've had acupuncture treatments that have resonated for weeks and months after having had them. So that's possible. Absolutely possible. Yeah, it can happen. And I'm just talking about upping the odds that somebody can use it deeply and that they can go there. So I'm just increasing the odds by offering a different setup, but certainly can. Yeah. Yeah.
So in terms of reflection contemplation, I was thinking about the importance of narrative, one's internal narrative. And for someone who's had chronic illness for a long time, one has pretty much gone through every storyline conceivable. And at some point, one reaches narrative exhaustion.
Mhm. Mhm.
And I guess my question is about the value of narrative exhaustion. That is the main purpose of contemplation, not to actually replace one narrative with another, but to ask the questions that go so deep that, you know, it's not about getting the answer, but about somehow just seeing directly something. Because all the answers now seem like they exhaust me. Every time I get an answer, it's really, I find it really tiring.
Yeah.
Because everyone has answers. So could you talk about the importance of reflection and contemplation? And is a narrative involved, or is it really more not thinking, but direct, something more direct?
Well, I think you've done a beautiful job of answering that question, but I'll try to rephrase this. So the question is about sort of the value of reflection and contemplation and story at the level of the essence. Would that sound like a reasonable, like, I mean, I think the most beautiful thing that you said was that, you know, you're tired of the answers, that you've exhausted the answers. And indeed, that is one of the main reasons I pose questions I think are very difficult to answer, because I do think that it's important to get to the place where the answer is not what you're after, right? If you're after the answer, I think that you've narrowed your possibilities, and I want to increase your possibilities, not narrow them. So I think the beauty of exhaustion at that level is just that at that point, you may actually become open to a wider range of possibilities for yourself. And that's valuable. And I think you're absolutely right that many of us create a level of narrative exhaustion with ourselves. It's kind of human to do so. And that reaching into your depths, into your essence, is a beautiful way to deal with that. Although it's not easy for many people to do that. Yeah, thank you. We are getting close to the end. I don't know, is there more online?
That's all the questions online.
Great, great. Wow. So grateful that you all be here, and so wonderful to talk with you.
Nice to see you. And listen to you.
Thank you. So I think we'll end for online. If you want to go ahead and do that.
You got a recording.
I know we need to end this recording.